Howdy, guys, and welcome to night 58 of Big Brother Season 23's overnight feed recaps. And welcome to Cliff Notes from outside the Big Brother house. All right, we had a lot going on last night, so I'm going to get right to it, see if we can get through all of it in a short amount of time. First of all, as a recap from the live episode, we did have the eviction last night. Sarah Beth goes home on a 5-1 vote. No surprise whatsoever there. Tiffany actually ended up being the person giving Sarah Beth the sympathy vote. And she made sure that she whispered into Sarah Beth's ear as Sarah Beth walked out the door that it was indeed Tiffany that had voted for her. Jury management on Tiffany's part, I think it was a great idea for her to do that. Apparently everyone knew she was going to do it, but Sarah Beth didn't know it, so that's going to go well for Tiffany. So Sarah Beth is juror number 3 going to the jury house. And we also saw in the goodbye message last week, Kyland had kind of hinted to Derek X that there was a big secret alliance going on. Well, he did the same thing to Sarah Beth, and he actually mentioned that he was part of it. So Kyland, apparently as part of his jury management, is going to be letting everyone know about this alliance. So everyone feels like he's kind of giving them the information, and that's his jury management he's doing. So we did have that. All right. After that, we get the HOH competition, and a lot of us thought it was going to be a slip and slide. No, it wasn't that. Different kind of endurance competition. It was a circus-themed hanging on or standing on those little discs, hanging onto rope and spinning around. Not my favorite competition. I hated it when I did it 2 seasons ago. I was swinging, I was hanging, it was horrible for me. But we have the competition a little bit earlier this season with so many people up on the ropes. But we do see them spinning on the ropes. Big D fell off almost immediately. Who would have thought that? We thought he was going to win this thing, right? Now, there's some competitions that aren't made quite as well for people of larger sizes and such. But now Big D didn't last that long. He was upset about it. He was hot throughout the evening. Part of the reason was because not just that he fell first, but the first 3 people that fell also were have-nots for the week. He did not like that, but we kind of expected to see him not last too long on the ropes. What was a bit more surprise was that Alyssa fell right after he did. She wasn't up there, but maybe 5 minutes or so. It was really quick, and she was very unhappy. She said later, I can't remember who she told, she said that she blacked out while she was up there, which is why she fell so early. Maybe, but yeah, it's a hard competition. So Big D falls off, Alyssa falls off, which is a huge relief for the Cookout Alliance. Remember, Claire had to throw this competition, so they didn't have to worry about her. So Alyssa was the only non-Cookout Alliance member that they really were worried about. So as soon as Alyssa goes, it certainly gets much easier. Now, here's the thing. Everyone kind of suspected that Claire might have been the secret HOH, but they didn't know for certain. So even though Alyssa was the big one to fall off, people were still a little bit nervous while Claire was up there. We did notice once Claire fell off, and I can't remember, she fell off 4th maybe, I'm guessing at that point. But once she fell off, a whole lot of people fell within just a few minutes after her. But we do have that. Now, Azah, there was some talk about throwing this competition to Azah, and I knew that was an issue when at one point during the live feeds, we did get to watch this on the live feeds as opposed to some competitions where you only find out later. So that was nice. Thank you, CBS, for letting us watch the live feed competition. I knew there was a problem with Azah because at one point you could see her crouching down, but the disc, her bottom was actually resting on the disc, which is a big no-no. We were told when we did that competition, if you did that, you would be eliminated. Sure enough, we see it on the feeds, and just a few minutes later, just a few seconds later, the feeds cut, and next thing we know, they're back, and she's laying on the ground. I have a feeling that someone probably over the loudspeakers said, "Yeah, Azah, your rear end touched the disc. You're out. You need to drop." We didn't see it live, but I think that's what happened. So once Azah was gone, then we ended up with Kyland and Tiffany and Xavier, all 3 hanging on the ropes. I think there's some conversations. People were a little upset that Kyland was still up there as long as he was. But after Kyland fell, it was obvious that Tiffany and Xavier both wanted to win this thing, or at least that they didn't want the other person to win this HOH competition, because they held on for a while. At one point, Big D says, "Hey, how about the 2 of y'all making a deal with each other?" Big D was done with it. He just wanted to go inside. And he said, "Why don't y'all do a deal with each other?" But none of that conversation took place. Eventually, and it looked like a foregone conclusion. Tiffany was holding on. She was pretty steady in that rope. Xavier changing some positions, things like that. It's hard for bigger guys, a little more weight, a little less. It's just hard, but Tiffany did what she needed to do. Xavier fell off, and Tiffany is the new HOH. Her second HOH win in the span of a week. So impressive on Tiffany. She's certainly turning it on a little bit. So Tiffany wins HOH. Have-nots are Big D, Alyssa, and Claire. So I guess Claire was the third person to fall. And once she fell, again, a lot of other people start falling. Is it because once Claire fell, all the have-nots were decided and everyone else felt comfortable falling? Or was it because once she fell, the Cookout Alliance knew that one of their members was going to be HOH, so they weren't too worried? No, maybe a little bit of both. But that's what we had with the results. And again, Big D not happy at all. He was complaining a bit throughout the competition. Now, before we go to live feeds, this a lot of stuff talking about. Before we go to the live feed, Julie Chin did tell us during the broadcast, Zingbot's going to make an appearance on Saturday at the Veto competition. I'm ready to see it. I'm ready to see what Zingbot says about all of them. But in particular, I'm very curious to see what Zingbot maybe says about Kyland and about Big D. I have a feeling Zingbot could have fun with both of them. We do also find out that we've got a double eviction next week. Most of the house guests already suspect there's a double eviction next week. What they don't suspect, what we didn't really realize either, is there's going to be 2 double evictions in a row. So in the span of 7 days, we're going to end up losing 4 people from this house. We're getting close to the end really quick, my friends. So we've got that. All right, on to the feeds. A lot of conversations. So some of these I'm going to go through pretty quick, but I wanted to try at least hit the highlights on this stuff. First of all, Tiffany dancing and celebrating her win with Claire in the choral room. Claire probably gained an extra week by Tiffany winning instead of Kyland or Xavier. But she probably gained an extra week by doing this. But of all the pawns that have gone home so far, everyone's got their little side person. Of all the ones that are going home, that have gone home, when Claire gets booted and realizes that she and Tiffany weren't as tight as Claire thought, I think Claire's going to probably be hurt more than anyone else this entire season. The way Claire is so excited, so happy with Tiffany, I really think that she thinks that she and Tiffany are the absolute ride or dies, and she's going to find out that's not the case. But she's celebrating, and I guess she should, because she does get an extra week because Tiffany has won this HOH. Alyssa is talking to Hannah, and as I mentioned earlier, she's saying that she blacked on the ropes. That's why she fell. Later, she is having a meltdown in front of Xavier. She's saying, I'm through with it. I'm over it. I'm through with the fake conversations. I'm through with the one-on-ones. I'm sure a lot of people are through with the one-on-ones. She says, I'm through with every bit of it. I don't even care if I get put on the block anymore. Well, get ready, Alyssa, because I hope you don't care, because you're going up there this week. But as she talks, it almost seems like Alyssa's more upset about the fact that she's going on slop for the third week this season, as opposed to her position in the game being threatened. She is not happy that she's going to have to go on slop once again. She's not in a good place right now. Big D also having a meltdown that started off at the competition itself. He's saying he's upset with these competitions, that they are unfair. When are they going to have the eating competitions or the strength competitions? Well, I get it. I sympathize with you, Big D. I was hoping there'd be a lot more mental competitions at the end of my season instead of physical competitions, but welcome to modern day Big Brother. Yeah, you just embrace it, you laugh about it, and you move on. It's it's tough. There are some competitions that as soon as you see them, you say, nah, this isn't going to be mine. I'm going to give it everything I got, but I'm probably not finishing this thing up. We do have Big D and Xavier. They're both complaining about Tiffany winning. A little upset about that. They're saying that Tiffany was supposed to throw this. Everyone was supposed to throw this to Azah. And here's the thing: if Xavier had fallen before Azah, if Kyland had fallen before, then I think Tiffany very well may have thrown it to her. That probably was the intent, but not while Xavier and Kyland were still up there. There's no way Tiffany was going to throw it. I'm telling you, Tiffany, the women and the men, we're seeing the battle lines being drawn. Tiffany wasn't going to give this HOH to any of the guys. And so they're upset with her for not throwing it to Azah, but I get it completely. And I understand exactly where Tiffany's head was at on that. Xavier is saying that Tiffany told him a little earlier that Alyssa is going up on the block, as we fully expect, but she's going up there next to either Kyland or Xavier. Well, I thought the plan always on these things is that you go up with kind of your side person, which in this case, it makes sense that it should be Xavier going up next to Alyssa if they're going to go through what they've done everything else so far. But Xavier's saying if he wins veto, he's pulling Alyssa down. But he's not going to tell Tiffany, because if he tells her, then guaranteed she's going to put him on the block next to Alyssa, which I kind of think she may do or should do anyway. But he's trying to talk her into not doing that. He's has some conversation, says, man, I've been on the block. I'm the new pawn. I don't want to be on the block a third time. So he's trying to make sure that doesn't happen. But he's saying, look, I'm not telling Tiffany, but if I win this veto, I'm pulling Alyssa off the block. So with that in mind, here's an interesting scenario for you guys to consider. Assume that Xavier and Alyssa do end up on the block together, and Xavier wins veto. Does he use it on Alyssa with the expectation that Tiffany will then be forced by the Cookout Alliance, or at least pressured by the Cookout Alliance to then put up Claire and send her home? So now Tiffany has sent out her tight buddy Claire, left Alyssa alone. Could he do that? But he's taking the risk that he's leaving himself up on the block instead. And does Tiffany get so mad at Xavier for doing that maybe she just blows up the Cookout Alliance at that point and is the one that takes the first shot within the Cookout Alliance? I don't know. If Xavier did that, it's a risky move, and it could put Tiffany in a really difficult position if it was to happen. And if he does that, what if she puts up Big D or Kyland instead, just as a bit of a revenge to Xavier to get back at him for trying to force her to send out Claire instead? I don't know. It could be interesting, and it makes me kind of think I'm going to really be cheering for Xavier in the veto competition tomorrow, just to see what happens. So we'll have that. Or Alyssa. If Alyssa wins veto as well, then Tiffany would be forced to put up Claire also. But watching Xavier have to make those decisions could be an interesting week. So kind of what I'm looking forward to. All right, we got Tiffany and Xavier talking, a long conversation. And again, some of what I've already mentioned before. But here's what the entire conversation really boils down to. One, Tiffany wants Alyssa gone this week, and Xavier wants to send home Claire. And they're butting heads against that, and they're going to butt heads about that until, I guess, the veto ceremony and everything is set in stone as far as nominees. They both want to protect their own person, send the other one out the door. Tiffany's going to win out on this because she has HOH, and that's why this HOH was so important. The second point, as I mentioned before, Xavier is really trying to come up with reasons why he shouldn't be on the block this week next to Alyssa. But the way they've played the alliance so far, it's his turn. It really is his turn. Now he's saying, look, this will be the third week in a row I've been on the block as a pawn. He said, I don't want to be on the block a third time. Well, the first time was just the roulette wheel, just random chance he got put on the block. The second time, it's because he took that penalty for winning the veto. So really, this is the first time he's being put on the block as an intentional move. So it's not that big a deal, but he doesn't want to be on the block again. And as we know, there's some ulterior motives besides just not wanting to be on the block. So he's trying to talk Tiffany into keeping him off the block at the nominations today. We've got Hannah and Claire talking. Claire's talking about Claire's saying, look, do you think the guys maybe are working together, even if it's not an official alliance, at least that they're working together? Yeah, absolutely. They're doing that, Claire. And she's certainly suggesting and implying that a guy needs to go home next. I think she would like to see Xavier out the door first. And so she's wanting to go after the guys. But Hannah, knowing the Cookout Alliance plans, is trying to steer her back towards Alyssa. And she's saying, look, you got to think about Alyssa, Claire. She's been targeting you and Tiffany. So maybe it makes more sense to send Alyssa out the door. Well, even if that's the case, wouldn't Claire think that Big D and Kyland both have very much been targeting Tiffany, and maybe they would be big targets as well? Yeah, they should be in a normal season of Big Brother. But with the Cookout Alliance as strong and as loyal as it is to each other, Hannah is certainly trying to steer Claire away from the guys and pointing the target at Alyssa. And she's wanting to have buy-in from Claire and try to make sure she understands what the reasoning is. Tiffany gets her HOH room around midnight. Everyone comes up and celebrate. They don't spend a whole lot of time up there, but she gets her letter and meals and everything else. Pics of her, I think her cats and or was it a dog? I can't remember at this point, and her son and everything. So everyone's very happy for her. It's their second HOH. And she said at one point, she told, I think it's Kyland, she said, look, yeah, I kind of wasn't originally planning to win this HOH, but then after Ozza fell, I just kind of felt a kind of way. And she's saying, I was only HOH for 19 hours. I want to win again just so I have the full week of an HOH experience so my son can see it and all that. I get all of that. Yeah, you can throw all out there. At the end, Tiffany wanted to win this HOH because she wanted the power to protect Claire, as she should. I had no problem with her winning whatsoever. Don't be throwing this stuff to other people. If you want to win HOH, you win HOH. You don't depend on other people to throw it to you. All right. We've got Big D and Kyland and Xavier talking. None of them are happy that Tiffany won. Well, of course they are. But even though Xavier doesn't want to be on the block for a third week, they're hoping that if things go according to plan, that Alyssa or Claire, but probably Alyssa would be the target, that they should all still be safe. So it's not the end of the world if it happens. But they're talking about how badly one of the three of them needs to win the final 6 HOH. Again, the final 6 is going to be all Cookout Alliance members. If the plan goes according to what they want it to go to, will be all Cookout Alliance members, 3 men, 3 women. And they're saying one of us has to win that first HOH when we're at final 6. And again, it's so they can send one of the women home and they can have the numbers to go the rest of the way through. Xavier is suggesting, that's interesting. Xavier is suggesting that if they're both picked to play in the veto, and there's no guarantee of that, but at least the odds are a little bit towards in their favor that that'll happen. He's suggesting that if they're and if they're both on the block, then obviously they're both playing in the veto. Xavier's saying if we're both playing in the veto, and I have a chance, I may have half a mind to actually throw this veto to Claire if she has a chance to win it. And I kind of agree. It's crazy when you're on the block and you have a chance to win veto. It's crazy that you would ever consider not winning that veto and pulling yourself off the block if you have the chance to do so. And normally, boss, I'm not ever going to advocate that. But in this particular situation, an Alyssa victory in the veto could be a little bit more benefit to Xavier's game, because then she pulls herself off the block. Tiffany has to put up Claire, and Xavier doesn't have the same blood on his hands. He can't be accused of betraying the alliance or forcing Tiffany's hand or anything like that. As long as he does a good job of making it look like she won fair and square, and he does a better job of throwing it than Kyland did back in the OTEF competition. If he throws it, it's obvious, and Tiffany's going to be mad no matter what. But if he does it right, he could throw this competition and put Tiffany in quite a difficult position. And Kyland is Kyland's pointing out that Tiffany, as much as she says all this stuff, Tiffany won that competition just because she wanted to protect Claire. Yeah, Kyland, you're absolutely right. That's what it came down to. Meanwhile, while the guys are kind of having their little conference in one room, in the in the HOH room, the 4 women are having their own conversations. I'm telling you, it's just going to be a gender battle at the very end. I just see it. But they're talking, not a lot of meaningful game talk since Claire's in the room, so not quite as intensive a strategy discussion as we had with the guys. But it's interesting. Both groups have mentioned that they expect next week to be a double eviction, so there aren't going to be surprises next week. The week following, they're going to be a little shocked, I think. We've got Ozza and Big D. So much stuff to talk about. I'll go fast, guys. Ozza and Big D are talking. And what's what? Ozza and Big D are talking. Which of these two makes it farther in the game without winning anything whatsoever? And can you imagine a final 2 of Ozza and Big D, and the 2 of them arguing about which of them deserves to win the game best? That'd be quite the interesting finale, wouldn't it? But they're talking. Ozza's saying that Tiffany is really worried that she's going to be nominated next week. Well, yeah, if Claire's on the block, then it's Tiffany's turn to be nominated next to her. So that seems like the way things have always worked. But apparently maybe Tiffany doesn't want to work it the same way or play it the same way because she's saying she's worried that she'll be put on a block. And I know what it is. I think Tiffany's worried if she's up on the block against Claire, the idea is that you send Claire home, but she doesn't trust the guys enough that they maybe wouldn't try to take an early shot at Tiffany and get her out anyway. I think that's what Ozza is suggesting. Big D is saying, look, Ozza, here's the thing. Guys are probably maybe a little mad at Tiffany because Ozza says she's afraid the guys are all mad at me, at her. And Big D says, well, they may be a little mad at Tiffany because she was supposed to throw this to you, Ozza. We were watching out for you, Ozza, but but Tiffany didn't play by the rules, didn't throw it to. Well, never mind that Kyland and Xavier were still up there beyond Ozza's turn as well. Whatever, but he's trying to get Ozza kind of on their side also. Hannah and Kyland are talking. Kyland is suggesting that Xavier and Tiffany might be working together. And it's interesting because they're big opponents with each other, but I see them kind of respecting each other's games and maybe going after not going directly after each other for a little while. So may not be wrong on that. But while Kyland is suggesting that, in another room we've got Tiffany and Claire talking. They in turn are worried that Kyland and Hannah might be getting tighter with each other. And I can kind of see that happen. Hannah has lost Derek X, and Kyland has now lost Sarah Beth. I can see Kyland thinking that he's going to bring Hannah in, and so he'll have the protection of the guys. He'll also have protection from Hannah. But Hannah, and Hannah's willing to go along with it, but Hannah and Tiffany, I think they're the true final two on this, and they talk about that in a second. Claire is suggesting that really Xavier needs to go home this week, and then Kyland should go next. But Tiffany, just like Hannah before, is saying, no. We really maybe need to look at Alyssa because she's targeting both of us, Claire. Alyssa's a big threat to the two of us, so we maybe need to look at her even before worrying about the guys. Surely, Claire's going to fully recognize the alliance when Alyssa becomes the target this week, right? You would think so, right? We'll see. Claire just hadn't quite seen the picture yet. Now, she's pointed out some things, as we saw in the episode last night. Alyssa had pointed out, said, "Hey, Claire, you're the only white person left in the alliance or in the house still." And so, Claire laughed about it, and so Claire's kind of seen some things pointed out. But I truly think Claire thinks that she and Tiffany are a ride or die to the very end, and she's going to be shocked when that's not the case. All right, Ozza and Xavier are talking. Ozza seems upset with Tiffany and Kyland both that they were staying up on the ropes. I don't know if she knew going in that they were going to try to throw it to her. I feel like there must have been some conversations that took place because there were too many people throughout the evening saying they didn't go along with the plan. The plan was supposed to be for Ozza. And so it seems like maybe there were some conversations that held ahead of time. But again, part of it may just be that Ozza sat on the disc and got disqualified before others had a chance to make it look good before they threw the competition. So I'm not sure how much of it was planned or not, but once Ozza was gone, obviously it's every man, every woman for themselves to win this thing. All right, we've got finally, I know it's going long. Finally, we've got Hannah and Tiffany sleeping in the HOH room. At one point, I think it's Xavier that says, "Oh man, Tiffany, she's just not going to let that girl go," referencing Hannah. And obviously, Tiffany now has her buddy. She knows that Claire probably is getting ready to go home, so she's trying to make sure she's got some other really tight connections. I think Tiffany's playing a great job on this thing. So Tiffany's got Hannah in the HOH room with her. Both of them are saying, "We're each other's final two." Hannah says, I think something along the lines of, "You're my only final two, Tiffany." And Tiffany says, "You're my only real final two, Hannah." So obviously, she has some other supposed final twos with a few folks here and there, but she's saying, "You're my real final two, Hannah." And I kind of believe it. I think Tiffany would be just fine going to final two next to Hannah. So they're talking about that. Hannah is saying that she's going to do everything she can to win Veto this week. Or if that doesn't happen, that she's going to throw it to Claire and let Claire win this thing so that Claire is safe and Alyssa goes home. So how funny would it be if she threw the veto to Claire? Claire maybe finds out things that are going on and all of that. And in the last second, she pulls Alyssa off the block and forces Tiffany to put up a Cookout Alliance member and send Xavier versus Big D or Kyland, send one of the guys home. It's not going to happen. Claire, if she wins a veto, she's not going to use it on Alyssa. I don't see that happening in a million years, but it's fun to think about some of the scenarios, right? But no, Hannah's saying that she's going to do whatever it takes to win this veto and protect Claire. And so we'll find out how it works. Both of them are complaining about Kyland. They're calling him selfish. They're calling him egotistical. When it comes down to this final six, let's assume it's all Cookout Alliance members. And let's assume that one of the women wins the that final six HOH. Who do they go after? Do they go after Kyland? Do they go after Big D, which Tiffany, we know she does not like Big D whatsoever. Do they go after Kyland because all the women really are a little fed up to some degree with Kyland and ready to see him go? Or do they go after Xavier, who they may consider to be the strongest competitor in terms of winning physical competitions, things like that? I don't know, and we're getting way ahead of ourselves, even pondering the scenarios. But that's what we're going to have all week long. I really think that we're going to see the Cookout Alliance positioning themselves in the best possible light as they get ready to boot the last one or two of the non-members. We're going to see a lot of planning. We may even start to see some backstabbing happen here quicker, sooner rather than we think, based on what happens to the veto competition. All right, so there you have it, guys. Friday, we'll have the nominations today. We won't have Veto and Zingbot until tomorrow, but we will have nominations today. I expect it to be Xavier and Alyssa, and we'll see what repercussions that creates this evening's with the conversations. Guys, y'all have a fantastic Friday. It's Friday, eh? Y'all have a fantastic Friday. Cheers, my friends. SKD143. Cheers. Bye.